Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Asian Art Museum. I'm Allison Wyckoff, Associate Director of Public and Community Programs. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all the peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. I'm thrilled to see you all here today for this very special program celebrating the life and legacy of the acclaimed artist Bernice Bing. If you haven't seen it yet, her work is on view downstairs in the Hambrecht Gallery, and we're open until 5 p.m. today, so please take time to visit the galleries before you leave. It's really a spectacular show. Today's program brings together a venerable group of Bay Area artists, scholars, and community activists who both knew Bernice Bing as a friend and colleague and studied her work. To start, Kim Anno and Lenore Chinn, both artists, activists, and dear friends of Bernice Bing, will lead us in a moment of silence for the late art historian Moira Roth and the executor of Bernice Bing's estate, Alexa Young, two close friends of Bing's who recently passed away.
It's such a beautiful moment to be here with all of you and with our friend, and to take this moment of silence to think about two important friends, colleagues, scholars, and artists. And that is Moira Roth, the art historian who for decades really championed Asian artists and artists of color, and really thought about what does it look like to have an equitable world, and being in an art world, what does it look like? And also Alexa Young.
I'd like to echo Kim's comments. It was with great sadness that we recently lost Alexa Young, who was sort of drafted into becoming the executive of the Bernice Bing estate when she discovered that Bingo, as we knew her, had designated her to be an executor of her estate when she passed. She had forgotten that she had made that decision before she went off to China. So when the time came and the will surfaced, that's when we started to get to know Alexa Young and her circle of friends up in the Sonoma Napa Valley. And from that point forward, they were champions. And as the years grew by, it really took a whole village to bring her to this point where we can enjoy her in a museum setting. So, yeah, sure.
I just want to say one more thing. Alexa and Bernice were waitresses in the old spaghetti factory. Okay, just think that, yeah. So we'd like to take this moment of silence in their memory and their honor. Thank you.
Thank you both. Today's program is in two parts: the screening of filmmaker Madeleine Lim's The World of Bernice Bing, followed by a panel discussion. We are fortunate to have Madeleine here to introduce the film, which tells Bernice Bing's story, illuminating her lasting impact on San Francisco, the people in this room and beyond, and the art historical canon. Madeleine Lim is an award-winning filmmaker with over 25 years' experience as a producer, director, cinematographer, and editor. Her films have screened at festivals including the Vancouver International Film Festival, Mill Valley Film Festival, and Amsterdam Amnesty International Film Festival. In 2000, she founded the Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project to enable queer women of color to tell their own authentic stories. Lim is the producer and director of the Worlds of Bernice Bing. Her new feature-length documentary about Jewel Gomez, Jewel, A Just Vision, continues to spotlight the transformative power of queer women of color artists as activists. Madeleine?
Hi, everyone. I hope it's okay if I keep my mask on. I'm actually supposed to be sheltering in place. I have a major cancer surgery in 5 days. Well, hello. Thank you for being here to celebrate Bernice Bing. The ultimate dream for me has always to have this film screen alongside Bernice Bing's paintings. So I am thrilled to be here today. I want to appreciate Abby Chen and the Asian Art Museum for their very important decision to acquire Bernice Bing's paintings. I also want to express my eternal gratitude to the inner circle of Bernice Bing, Bingo's inner circle, who advocated for visibility and recognition for Bernice over 25 years. This film was created in close collaboration between AWA, Asian American Women Artists Association, and QuackMap, Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project, an organization that I founded 23 years ago. I want to give a big shout out to Cynthia Tom. I'm not sure if she's here, the former executive director of AWA, and Shari DeBoa, board member of AWA, for their kindness, generosity, and patience working on this documentary. So this documentary is inspired by Bernice Bing's life and legacy, her art and activism. In the fall of 2010, Nancy Hom, board member of AWA, approached me about making a film about Bernice Bing. In fact, it was Nancy who came up with the title, The Worlds of Bernice Bing. And that was the first time I heard of Bingo and the incredible life that she had led and the impact she had. I was instantly and totally inspired by Bernice, so I wanted the film to do justice to her extraordinary life, to reflect her struggles, personal and professional, to convey the impact she had on the art world, on community, on people who knew her and who loved her. Kibo Drew, one of the co-producers of the film, and the writer of the documentary, and I began by reading everything we could get our hands on about Bernice Bing. And back then, there was not very much at all about Bingo. This was 2010. Jen Banta, another co-producer of the documentary, generously made her master's thesis about Bernice Bing available to us. And Kibo and I did our research. And once we had looked at the piles and piles of journals that Bernice had written and all of, her paintings, then Kibo and I we started to figure out who we wanted to interview, how to structure the documentary, who we wanted to include in the film. And we very intentionally selected folks who would speak to the different aspects of Bernice's life, the art world, the grassroots community world, the lesbian world, Bingo's intimate personal world. So these interviews formed the core of the film. And by the way, the interviewees of the documentary are superstars in their own right. Yes, it is a star-studded cast, if I do say so myself. And I just wanted to add that Ginny came at the very end. Ginny and Bernice were partners on and off for 12 years, and Amal Khattab, my editor, and I had already been editing for more than 5 months, and we had been in contact with Ginny, trying to get her to agree to an interview, and she finally came on because, we were missing that personal perspective of Bingo's life, and Ginny added that. The music score is comprised entirely of Anthony Brown's compositions. Anthony is a critically acclaimed Bay Area musician. He very generously made all of his music available to us and gave us full access to select any of the pieces that were a good fit for the film. So all in all, just to say that it was a deep collaboration among many people that birthed the film, and it was forged by love and respect for Bernice. I also want to share why I feel a connection to Bernice, even though I had never met her. I see Bernice as my lesbian artist foremother. As a filmmaker, I work in a field that is almost completely dominated by white men. As a queer, immigrant, Asian woman filmmaker, I understood her struggles to be recognized for her skill, only too intimately. And because I understood her struggles, I wanted to do justice to her story and to who she is. I wanted this film to reaffirm her life, to recognize her leadership, shine a light on her impact, and bring her story to the forefront. As a filmmaker, my creative vision is influenced by the queer filmmakers of color of the 80s who pushed the boundaries of the film genre, like Marlon Riggs, Langston Hughes, Pratibha Parmar. I'm also deeply influenced by fifth-generation Chinese filmmakers, like Zhang Yimou, who made Raise the Red Lantern with Gong Li, Chen Kaige, who made Farewell My Concubine with Leslie Chung, Sui Hark, who made the Swordsman series with Brigitte Lin and Jet Li. Bold, vivid colors that convey powerful emotions. Important stories that are told emotionally, because we remember stories that touch us emotionally. It's important for me to ensure and document Bernice's legacy. Her legacy is a Chinese-American lesbian artist. She is among some of the bravest people who made it possible for the next generation to freely be who they are. For me to be the artist I am today, I stand on her shoulders. So it was important for me to honor Bernice in this way. I'm honored that this film adds to the scholarship on Bernice Bing and her impact. I hope you enjoy the film, and I am happy to answer questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful and moving film, Madeleine. I've seen it several times, and I'm always just inspired by the new discoveries and all of the interviews with so many of you who are here today. Moving on to the panel, I'd like to welcome Jen Banta Yoshida, who will introduce the panelists and moderate the discussion, after which we hope to have time for a short Q&A. Jen Banta Yoshida is a cultural activist and Bing scholar devoted to an intersectional framework that expands and transforms the conventional canon of art history. Her master's thesis acknowledged Bernice Bing's important role as an abstract painter and spiritual seeker in 2008 and includes original research and interviews. She is the project director and a co-producer of the Worlds of Bernice Bing. For 20 years, her scholarship and work has advocated on behalf of Bay Area artists of color and arts organizations, including La Pocha Nostra, Culture Clash, SOMART's Cultural Center, the Asian Pacific Islander Cultural Center, and the Asian American Women Artists Association. Please help me welcome Jen to the stage.
Thank you.
I haven't seen the film in a few years, and I was just incredibly moved. Thank you, Madeleine. Beautiful. I also wanted to take this moment to thank Allison and Abby Chen and Indra Mughal, all the people at the Asian Art Museum who have helped make this exhibit possible. It's been my absolute pleasure to work with all of you. This has been quite a journey to arrive here at this moment. Certainly a much-deserved recognition of Bernice Bing and her influence on the cultural landscape of the Bay Area. And I find it so fitting and moving that Bing's work and Carlos Villa are honored together here. It's been 10 years since the making of the Worlds of Bernice Bing. This is kind of a perfect moment to pause and further consider Bing's work and activism. As we reflect on the state of Asian American artists today in the San Francisco Bay Area, we will hear about a younger generation deeply inspired by her legacy. There are so many lessons from Bing's life, the values she lived that were quite relevant when this film was made, and even more so today. Bing stood for freedom and equality in her personal life, in the arts world, and in the Asian community. A lot has happened in the world these past 10 years, with even more seismic shifts in the last 3 years. What would Bernice say about all of this? I am so honored to gather with some of my favorite artists and activists, and I'm excited to introduce them all to you. First, Kim Anno is a painter, filmmaker, and social practice artist. Anno founded Wild Projects, a nonprofit whose mission is to collaborate worldwide through fearless art, film, and performance to inspire resiliency in the face of adversity. Her latest works are Our Breath, 2021, Cuba, a documentary on the LGBT movement in Cuba, 90 Miles from Paradise, Water City, Ipswich, and Men and Women in Water Cities. Anno's work has been exhibited worldwide. And fellow San Francisco native, Lenore Chinn, is a painter, photographer, and cultural activist. Chinn works to create structures of personal and institutional support that will both sustain critical artistic production and advance movements for social justice. Portraiture is at the core of her visual art practice, which employs both painting and photography. Chinn was a founding member of Lesbians in the Visual Arts, a co-founder of the Queer Cultural Center, and has been active in the Asian American Women Artists Association since the group's inception. And Nancy Hom. Who is an artist, writer, curator, and arts consultant. Born in Toisan, China, and raised in New York City, she's been a leader in the San Francisco Bay Area art scene since 1974. Through her posters, illustrations, installations, mandalas, poetry, and curatorial work, Hom uses the arts to affirm the histories, struggles, and contributions of communities of color. She has also nurtured the creative and organizational growth of over a dozen Bay Area arts organizations. Her long involvement with Kearney Street Workshop, an Asian American arts organization, includes serving as its executive director from 1995 to 2003. And Diana Lee is an artist and arts organizer working in the San Francisco Bay Area. She has curated and managed multiple exhibitions and programs, including the United States of Asian America Festival 2018 to 2022, Sewing Agency 2021, and Agriana, Art Inspired by API Agricultural Roots 2019. Her art and video work has been featured at the Cantor Arts Center, SOMARTS, and CAMFest. She currently serves as managing director for the Asian American Women Artists Association. So each of us have talked in the film about our unique connection to Bernice, and we were all kind of exchanging notes prior to the panel, and about what I asked before, what would Bernice say about this moment? And I think that it's really wonderful to be able to start this conversation in the present by hearing from Diana, who poignantly shared how AWA considers Bing as an AWA godmother. So I wanted to start off this conversation by asking, how does AWA continue Bing's work, and what values from Bing's life are especially relevant today?
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say how honored I am to be here with all these women on stage, and in the legacy of Bernice Bing as well, and in the legacy of community leaders and artists and activists. I think one of the things that we were talking about in a discussion before this panel was something that sticks out to me in this film is the moment when her friend talks about the way she was describing the colors of the sky, and just how blissful that and intuitive that came to her, and how free she was in her expression through the arts. And I think something I'm also inspired by is just her community activism and her organizing. A lot of the work that I've done through the API Cultural Center, through Asian American Women Artists Association. I was also festival coordinator for Kearney Street Workshop as well. Like all of these organizations that Bernice had an impact in, and SOMARTS is still a living, breathing art center to this day, where AWA, we still host biennial exhibitions there every other year with APIC. And so just continuing in that legacy of organizing and creating space for artists to be free in their art making. And Jen mentioned that this film, it's been 10 years since this film was released as well. And so I'm just thinking about all of the work that goes into creating histories through these organizations, and what it took to get her work up on the walls of this museum. And if you're an AWA member in the house, please make some noise, raise your hand. We are a growing community of artists and art professionals and art supporters. And we are hungry for our work to be recognized and seen as Bernice is to this day. So yes, I hope that can start us off in a good position.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diana. Anybody else who wants to jump in along that vein? I mean, I think bringing this to the present moment in terms of the state of Asian American artists and in the Bay Area, and what a critical role being played in so many of the organizations that have been longstanding in supporting artists of color in the Bay Area. That's not really a question, but yeah.
Is this working? Okay, good. I think it's super exciting to sit here with Diana Lee. And how old are you, Diane?
I'm 31 now, I just turned 31.
So just congratulations on the 31. It's so super exciting to sit here with the younger generation, and also to look at Bernice's legacy and to see that continue to grow out in the community, making more and more linkages. The fact that you guys are doing stuff with APIC and SOMARTS, I mean, the organizations that Bernice founded are still functioning, thriving. Scrap, SOMARTS, Kearney Street Workshop, the Arts Commission, which was neighborhood arts. I mean, artists can make a world. We can make a world. And she did, and we are, and Diana is now. To me, that's the most we can hope for in this state of late capitalism and the rise of fascism. It's just to see this, it's so weird. Like, you see things get so dark, but then there's also so much space, so much expansion and beauty and connection. So we have to remind ourselves that, because we walk around with these clouds overhead, we can't believe that what is going on is surreal. But this is real too. And I'm so honored to have the young generation sitting next to me.
Amen.
I think piggybacking off what Kim had said, and actually a recurring commentary in the film, which is something we talked about downstairs at lunch, is that when Bernice, AKA Bingo, was starting out, there really were no role models, as we have gotten later on. There wasn't a template for her to follow. this was before the very commercialized marketplace came into being. And so she really forged ahead with the things that where she was passionate about, and in a variety of fields. She was willing to experiment. She was open to trying out new things in painting or her spirituality, making connections, creating nonprofits, or being part of the foundation of those early institutions, which are, you know, some of them, as you say, are still going on today. Some of us, when we were starting out with our education in art, we didn't have a whole lot of role models either. There were very few models that we could recognize in the textbooks of our day, History of Art by Jansen. Even his son didn't do a great job inserting, you know, more of us in there for us to be inspired by. And so I think if you look at the art history that we went through and some of the organizations that we veered toward or whatever, or created ourselves, many which came into being in the late 80s, as some of you might remember. And so the succeeding generations benefited by our experiences. We benefited by the previous generations. And so it's thrilling, I think, to see that that continues and it's getting better. It's not perfect. We still have ways to go, but I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I think, you know, Bernice and I, even though there were a few years of difference, we started off pretty much in similar places. I was part of Kearney Street Workshop since 1974, and it was formed in 1972 by Jim Dong, Mike Chin, and Laura Fu. Bernice's forte was to encourage people who were getting together, especially Asian American artists. So she was kind of the, sounds corny to say, but she was the wind beneath our sails. And she was like the cheerleader, because we didn't know what we were doing either. Like Lenore said, there were no role models to follow. But we had that spirit that Bernice also had. And our motto was, boldly go where no one has gone before. And so we did, and it wasn't about money, although money surely would have helped. And Bernice, being part of the neighborhood arts program, found a way to get us a few dollars, you know, for the programs that we envisioned. But it was a time of great innovation, at least for me, coming from New York City and finding this workshop. You know, murals were just beginning in Chinatown, and, you know, if we couldn't do it because we couldn't afford it, we would find a way to do it. And just one quick example of that is like photo murals. We take it for granted, and there are photo murals in the exhibition now. But it was very expensive to do, and we didn't know how to do it, but we knew we wanted it. So we built these wooden troughs and somehow put varathane or whatever it is to waterproof these gigantic troughs so that we could slosh the chemicals, slosh the paper through these chemicals physically, 2 people on one side, 2 people on the other, just walking in rhythm like a dance just to get the paper exposed. I mean, that's what I mean. And I have to say those photo murals we did were pretty good, considering how we did it. And the same went for silk screening, the same went for many other innovative things we did. We did animation when we didn't even know how to do animation. But like Bernice Bing too, we were kind of on the wild side. Frequented all the bars that she frequented till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And drinking, I don't want to even tell you what we drank back in the day. But we drank several glasses of it and flashed on ideas, and Bernice was part of that. And she often came to the workshop because she recognized us as kindred souls.
That's a beautiful example, and I was just thinking a little bit about some of the things that we were talking about prior, and then also was talked about in the film as well, about how, and you have this experience, Nancy and Diana too, as being artists and, working in both worlds, like with one foot in the world of art organizing and activism, and simultaneously being able to have a practice, right? And that was something that Bernice actually made a decision to devote herself to painting. And we were talking about the kind of, activism is needed in this day and age, and how the line between aesthetics and activism is very complex and blurry. And I was interested to hear from each of you about your relationship to that and how you make space and room for your practice and keep your activism alive, because I know that you all have thriving practices also.
I'd say that's a very challenging thing to do. I just want to give a shout out to Midori, who's here, who gave me a workshop on Patreon, which is something that I'm using to encourage me to focus on my artwork, because the activism for me takes priority in a lot of ways, and it's what makes me feel good. It's so personal too, to the point that almost all of my creativity is going into directing AWA some of the time. And I only just recently left my job at the Asian Pacific Islander Cultural Center, and that has kind of given me more space to create the art. But yeah, just to have the space to make the art and work in community organizing, it's a challenge, because a lot of artists are they don't have space to make art too. And so we have to fight for it, and that's why the activism takes priority, I think, too. And to try and get ourselves represented through the exhibitions that we curate and the programs that we do for our members and for Asian American artists. So.
Yeah. Kim?
If everybody would do a little bit more activism, all of you out there,
Yes.
just a little bit more, then some people don't have to do a lot more.
Yes, please.
We really need your help. There is so much that needs to be done. I think you can't do it all the time, and you can't do everything at once. I like what you said. You had to quit the APIC in order to do this other stuff. And I think that's true for me, too. I also run a nonprofit, and I'm on some boards, People for the Incarcerated and some other things. I do think that you need time to just kind of recharge and relax like everyone else, and be in your garden and try out all those recipes during the pandemic and that type of thing. But also, I feel really strongly about artists being able to do things to shift power. And in shifting power, sometimes it doesn't mean it's a whole big power. It can be just certain linkages and pathways. And if you just reach back, you get something, you reach back, and then you bring someone along after you've gotten something, that can be just enough for that moment. I never feel like I have the time to be a full-time activist, but I do think that I want to be able to impact my community and be part of it and show up and be responsible. And at the same time, I want to make really crazy art. So in order to have time for that really, risk-taking, I try to get, as going to the Art Institute, we always had this motto, there is no greater risk. You have to take as much risk as possible when you're making a work of art. And that kind of came out of the Art Institute. Of course, look where they are now. So the bummer with that was they went exactly too far against the wall. But whatever, that is still ingrained in me. And I think Bernice had that too. You want to just be able to be present with your work and be challenging yourself with your work. But also you want to create a place where you want to live with other people. And that's the community we have. And that's what I love about Lenore Chinn. Like, Lenore is always out there in the community, just with people and documenting people. And as we've been saying, that she's like the scribe for the community. And then that, to me, you can't make somebody do that. They got to feel that to do that. And I really admire Bernice, that she had the inclination coming up so difficult in her childhood to actually realize that there's the future. There's a future in Kearney Street Workshop and Scrap and Soam Arts and AWA. There's a future to be made. And to me, that is still super exciting, super wonderful. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of a quote that Angela Davis periodically comes up with, is envisioning. You have to sort of dream, and dream big. And one of the other things that Bingo comments on in that excerpt of the that was taken of her, that's downstairs in the loop, is the fact that it really helps when you can kind of build critical mass. And that's what AWA, APIC, and other organizations that have come up over the years, that's what that's all about. Because it's really hard to juggle whether you have an art-related gig or not. It's hard to juggle to survive and do your art practice. But it really helps when you have a lot of other people around you who have similar ideas, values that you can exchange, that you can network with, that keep you going. Because otherwise, if you're in complete isolation, you can get totally lost, and you lose the spark that you need to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's not true that, like, we can do things by ourselves, that we're so much better, in connection with others, in community. That, the idea that it takes a village to raise a child is also quite true, even though we've gotten so, this idea of being, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you got to do it all on your own, and yet the real beauty comes in with collaboration. And I loved what you said, Kim, about like reaching back, because it is all about micro shifts. Because the world right now can seem so overwhelming, no matter where you turn and focus. And yet, if we can just do one little thing to make things better, within our sphere of influence, and that, and everyone does that, then that, builds up to a shift of consciousness, which is we desperately need.
Can I say
Yes.
something about the activism? To me, activism can have a very big A in front of it, or it can just be something very simple as just wanting the world to be better for yourself and for others. And I'm a Buddhist like Bernice, and I wonder if some of her activist activity stems from the notion that we are all interdependent. We are all connected and all part of one another, so that everything you do reflects a compassion toward all people. And we don't have that separation with, you know, I'm going to protest you. It's more about protest is, you know, I've said this before, protest is pro-love. So that you're not protesting, but you are building a better world together. And I think, you know, everybody sees Bernice a different way, is you know, because she presented or she related to people and to groups, whatever group she's relating to, she presents the best container for that group to relate to her. So she kept parts of herself away from, you know, this face or that face. But inside herself, all these parts are interconnected. So that, you know, I mean, for myself, I'm an artist, yes, but I also build community. And even my art is about promoting something that the community does, or my mandalas bring all kinds of people and all kinds of ideas together in one circular, singular whole, so that you could see yourself and everybody else in it, that you are part of this whole microcosm. And I think Bernice, for all her parts, it shows in her art. You know, you don't think of abstract expressionism as activist, but you can see all her influences and all the people who see her art and relate to it. She draws you in, and she kind of draws everybody in. It's kind of like mandala work, you know. It's the best I can describe it, that interconnection, and to feel that we are all part of one another, to quote another activist, Yuri Kochiyama.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for evoking her. Yeah, I was thinking this perfect segue. We can open it up. Oh, sorry, that sounds so loud. If anybody from the audience has a question or a comment, yes? Oh, here comes
Hold on
Allison
one
with a
second.
microphone. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mary Jean Robertson, and I do a radio show at KPOO, and it's been about 50 years, and I got to live through what Bernice Bing created in San Francisco, because what she did for all of us was to encourage every single community to flower, because we were all able to be part of the neighborhood arts program, which was different from the opera and the ballet and the symphony. We had a core belief that we could transform the city by bringing unique communities into the life of day. And that's what the cultural centers did, that's what we did, and it's reflected in all kinds of communities and all kinds of spaces. Like the World Arts West brings all the communities' dance programs into Flower, and it's not like a unilateral kind of thing. It's where people from all over the world bring their dances to San Francisco when they move to San Francisco, and then they can perform and bring out what they brought together in San Francisco. And that's a reflection of the city that I don't think people know they're looking for when they come here. But that's exactly what draws everybody here, is that community, that activism, that belief system. So thank you all for reminding us what Bernice brought to all of us. As I was part of the neighborhood arts program. I was the secretary when they were building the cultural centers. And it's really enriched my life.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, my name is Blue. I'm a regular person. And I just wanted...
And I want to say my former high school classmate.
Hi, Kim. And I just wanted to say I love this film, and I particularly loved it because I think for me, it was the best kind of descriptor of what abstract expressionism is. And I really appreciated that. I also think that it would make an amazing feature film if you really flesh out her relationships. I see, like in her art, a lot of her sexuality, and that would be a great way to kind of tell that story and all the feelings and her, her contradictions, and I just thought it was really amazing, and so I just wanted to thank you so much. And I've also worked with Amal Kutab I worked with cancer programs at San Francisco General, and she's very, very dear to me. So thank you so much, both of you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
I also just want to point out like how much work goes into making something like this, and how there are so many other stories in this room, on this stage, in the audience that need to be told. And I'm just going to do a quick plug because through AWA, we are attempting to try and capture more of those stories through our oral histories program, Pass It On. And Kim has been in our first episode, Birth of the Movement, which is on our Vimeo now. And Lenore and Nancy are in our second episode, which is in post-production right now. So the work to try and get these stories down takes a lot of resources, and we appreciate your support if you can offer it.
Wow. Brava, that's wonderful to hear. Yes.
Hi, I'm Grace Santana, and years ago, I had the honor of meeting her thanks to Lenore Chinn. We were driving down to Stanford for one of her small exhibits, and she was so beautiful. Thank you. I'm so moved.
Hi, my name's Susie. I had the honor of meeting and getting to know Bernice in her latter years of life. I married, my husband is one of her first cousins, and my sister-in-law's here, my brother-in-law. She was amazing. I wish she had lived longer, because I think she and I would have been best friends. I loved her activism. I love that she paved a way for the LGBTQ community. I love that. Had many friends in that community, and they were really alone during that time. But I want to thank Lenore Chinn as well. She keeps us, the family, updated on all of these events, and it's such an honor to Bernice, to Bingo. So Lenore, I just want to thank you so much, and Diane Lee, you're an inspiration to our younger. I do know that Bernice Bingo's spirit, we will continue to share with our family, and it continues, her legacy continues, and spirit continues to live in our children. And we have Jada here as well, and my son and my daughter. So they are the creatives, and I'm proud. I'm damn proud of that, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Ever since Bernice passed in 1998, whenever we had a project, whether it was little or grand, we could always count on her family. There used to be some aunts and uncles, but now they're all cousins and various relations. And also, I'm not sure, but there may be some folks from the Ming Kwang Orphanage. Nona Mock Wyman couldn't make it today, kind of last minute thing, but there may be a few in the audience, and they've also been diehard fans that come out whenever they hear a rumor that there's going to be something happening. So thank you all very much for your support. It does take a village.
I'm Lucy Arai, and I just want to say that it's this occasion, one of, I think, Bernice's last community efforts to organize was when a group of us in the early days of AWA had a retreat out in Philo at her place. And there's a photograph of the group of us that had met. Some of us are here. And she was really great to give us this space. It was sacred, not only for it being in her studio and in her private life, but that she gave us the incubator of her heart to go through my reading assignments for everyone at that time when I was going through the 503(c)(b) requirements to become a nonprofit. It was too much for me alone, and I was getting ready for an exhibition that would go to Berlin. We met, and we each took our sections, and we hashed it out, and ultimately we decided that now was not the time. This was spring of 1996. It was not time. So Diana, I look forward to meeting you. I lived here for many years. I've recently relocated up to Longview, Washington, just across the Columbia River in Portland, Oregon. AWA thrives, and this is directly because Bernice gave us that time, that space, her love and support. And thank you all for being here, because for all of us who did know Bernice, and those of you who are being introduced to her through this film and her work, we each are holders of her legacy. So I say, move forth wherever you go in your lives and in this world, and let us activate and motivate. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Marcy Edelman, and so often women, women of color, lesbians, we're forgotten. Our history is forgotten. And it's up to us to see that that doesn't happen, and you've done that. What a beautiful film. I cannot thank you enough. All of you here and friends out in the audience, I know that you made today happen because you wouldn't let Bernice B disappear. And we have to continue that work for Bernice and for every generation that comes after her. And I love what you said, with just a little bit of activism, we can make a world of difference. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you.
Can I do one more quick plug? If you are talking about the next generation, if you are someone who is interested in curating and producing and being behind the scenes and making art history, AWA, we put on every other year when we're not doing a show at SOMARTS, we do our Emerging Curators program, and applications for that are actually due today. So please spread the word.
No pressure.
But let me know if you need more time too. We can offer an extension.
Hi, I'm Meiji Lee. I just want to say thank you so much for this film. It really moved me. I don't want to feel like this is just an older generation. It's not just a younger generation thing. It's intergenerational. It's all of us. And so it's feeling so many parallels from bingos to all of us. I really thank you. And I want to know more about that community outreach, because I feel like as a younger generation, how do I leave that? How do I leave that for people after me. And I feel like it's almost sometimes too late that we're paying homage and tribute so much later. So how do we make that impact now? And allowing our younger generations to overcross with our older generations is something that I want to strive for. And it's really moved me today. So thank you so much for everyone.
I just wanted to also make a plug since Diana made a plug. Another elder in the Asian art world, John Yao. John Yao is in his 70s, and he was the only art writer in Art Forum, the only Asian art writer in Art Forum for 15 years. And he never got to pick his subjects. He always took the leftovers. But he championed those people that were left over, and he wrote books about them. And he's written 50 books, and he's going to be speaking March 30th at 5 o'clock at CCA in Timken Auditorium. Come and see John Yao. He's one of our elders. He's a hero, and he has a new book coming out called Please Wait for Me by the Coat Room, where he discusses Wilfredo Lam's painting On the Way to the Bathroom in the New York MoMA. He wrote a whole essay about it. And he has a new book, and it's coming out, and he's still alive. Come see him.
Beautiful, thank you.
I just want to say something about Bernice's, the reason why she really cheered on new groups is because she really believed in community building. And we were young then. We were only in our 20s. And in her eyes, this was the new generation coming up that would get together and create fabulous work. And she believed in strength in numbers, which I also believe. So I continued to build community wherever I went. So at Kearney Street Workshop, we started a group called Aperture. It was a program just for young artists to get together to show their work, but they did everything. So they learned how to mount their artwork, to get a venue, to show the work, and to teach each other how to be administrators, how to market their work, everything. And I was the one, I was director at the time, so I was the one who got the money and made sure they didn't do anything illegal. That was the only job for me, but pretty much I left them alone. AWA also has an emerging artists program and other programs that really help young artists come up. So in a way, it perpetuates the field, but it also builds community around them. I mean, why are we here? Because we all know each other and can recommend each other. And some of us have gotten into museum settings or into institutions. And who do they think about to come and speak or to show their work? They remember from all this community activity, and then they have a big pool to draw from. And so that's one way to, and then you have that intergenerational mix, because even with AWA, we're kind of the elders and the mothers or the grandmothers.
What
now.
happened?
But we're still with AWA, and then we see all the young people, and there's a nice intergenerational exchange that comes up.
Thank you so much, Nancy. This whole conversation, both the one that we had up here on the stage, but all the contributions from the audience has just been like medicine for me. Thank you so much. And I wrote down a couple of notes of something I wanted to say at the end, and it seems kind of prescient now based on what everybody has shared from the audience. And I just wanted to acknowledge again that so much of the advocacy that led to this moment, this exhibit, this film screening, this panel, involved tireless perseverance, holding up those who came before and shining the light of visibility. And by showing up, each of you in the audience also contributes to keeping Bing's legacy alive. And I thank you all so much for being here today. And thank you to all of our panelists. It's always a pleasure to get to have a conversation with you guys.
Thanks, Jen Banta.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.